Um, okay, so this morning's discussion is to be about practice, right? That was the focus of my paper. And in thinking about practice, I guess what I wanted to do with this paper is pull together a number of strands of my own thinking and our discussions about what the nature of that practice of supported decision-making actually is, so that we can talk about it, and we can think about it, and we can think about what its foundation is. And I guess it started from this concern and the question that's come up through our discussions here in the past many times, which is, are we just fabricating a legal fiction in situations where people have really profound, really significant disabilities that only one or two other people in their lives would be able to say, I know this person sufficiently well enough that I can tell you that in fact this is what they want. In moving this way, in gesturing this way, this is what this person wants, and on that basis we can direct decision. And I think it's been a kind of sort of phrase of art, if you will, that, well, what we're doing, all we're doing really is translating someone's intention and will into action. And we use that, we kind of pull that off the shelf and say, that's what we're doing, ergo that justifies this whole system that we're trying. So what I wanted to do is think about, what does that actually mean? What does it actually mean to translate someone's intention and will into action? How do we know someone's intention and will in the first place? What is that practice all about? And so in a sense, I'm trying to develop with all of us, I think all of us are, a theory of what this practice is. And the reason is, it's not just a kind of interesting philosophical question. The reason is that we come up against this claim that it's just a legal fiction when we support someone in a doctor's office or go to a lawyer's office or go to the bank. People are saying, well, yeah, okay, come on. I understand for most people this is fine, they need some support, but really, what are we talking about here? That this person really can't have legal capacity, and one of the biggest issues we're dealing with now in Canada, I mean, in terms of an immediate issue on this, is around a financial instrument that's been made available through the tax system by the federal government, the Registered Disability Savings Plan, but you have to have contractual capacity in the amendment to the Income Tax Act in Canada if you're going to open up a plan on your own. You've got to have a severe disability as the key criterion, as measured under the disability tax credit provisions in the Income Tax Act, and you have to have contractual capacity. Well, what parents are being told across the country who are in our movement, Arlene would face this, as many others, the only way you can, if you don't have contractual capacity, you have to get a legally authorized representative. A legally authorized representative is, in most jurisdictions, basically a guardian. So the cost of preparing for the future financial security of your son or daughter is that you have to declare incompetent so that you can open a registered disability savings plan for them and basically get some tax savings. So this is where the whole question, it's in immediate situations like that the question of is this just a legal fiction comes up. I want to read from you actually a contract. We recently got some money from the federal government to explore this issue and come up with some alternatives that would enable people with significant intellectual disabilities to be able to open registered disability savings plans on their own, and to come up with some legal mechanisms to do this. So and it was only actually after I signed the contract with the federal government that I saw someone pointed out to me the fine print, and it's very interesting. So it's at the very end, fine print, it says other considerations. When undertaking this research and analysis, the contractor should keep in mind, this was just a couple of months ago, that there are many different disabilities that might result in a person's legal capacity becoming a concern, and therefore the type of supports needed may significantly vary across the spectrum of disabilities. Right, we agree. Second, the different levels of, take into account also the different levels of capacity within a group that have the same disability, the financial cost of supports and who would bear that burden, Another point, that at some point supported decision-making is no longer a feasible alternative. For example, in the case of the Registered Disability Savings Plan, when a person with intellectual disabilities is unable to be consistent in his or her decision-making from day to day, or is too low functioning to understand basic money, numerical, and other financial concepts. And also we should take into account the views of different cultural communities and people with diverse types of disabilities. So these were what we were to take into account when we were developing policy recommendations for the federal government. And I signed the contract, we were underway to work tonight.
But you just described me.
Right. But nobody would question your contractual capacity to open an RDSP for yourself. Well, if you had it for your daughter or anyone else, or for yourself. So, I mean, I quickly wrote back to the contracting department, of course, just so you know, we did sign a contract, but I did that on the understanding that that particular provision doesn't apply, and if there's any problem, please get back to me, because you'll be getting policy recommendations that speak exactly to that point. My point is that we are not just dealing with a philosophical problem when we think about this question about a legal fiction, and that most of the people that we're in institutions that we're countering out there really look back at the work we're doing, and they know the work that we're doing, and basically we're saying, okay, Michael, do this, but really, let's be serious here. It's not for these people that we're talking about supporting decision. So that's sort of one of the starting points. Also, the sort of backdrop for this paper is that it rests on a particular understanding of what supported decision-making is in a legal sense that, we've been working on in various ways. And it rests on some assumptions that we might explore over the next couple of days, but just for the framework of this paper, that we recognize that people exercise their legal capacity in different ways, that we propose sort of these three decision-making statuses for exercising legal capacity, that you can exercise it legally independently. That is, I may or may not want support, I may or may not need accommodation, but the doctor that I'm encountering is satisfied that I understand the nature and consequences of my decision on my own, and I can give consent. But that there's a group of people who the doctor won't be able to communicate, or the financial institution, as recognized in this contract, and it's not just that they need plain language, because I see that as an accommodation for someone who wants to act legally independently. They actually can't communicate in ways that the doctor understands, or the financial institution. They actually cannot communicate, and they're in many cases not in a position to say in ways that others would understand, I want you to support me over you to support me, but what we can, and those around them can construct, is an understanding that they trust this person to play this role of support in their lives. So we're talking about people, what I'm talking about in this paper is people with significant disabilities in that way, whether of an intellectual nature, cognitive disability from brain injury or dementias, or a person with a significant psychosocial disability who at certain points or states of mind in their lives are not able to communicate in ways that most others understand, which can be of a very episodic nature. So what I'm trying to do is step way, so that's the group we're talking about, those are the situations we're talking about, and I want to step way back to think about what is it that we're actually doing when we support this person. So I want to just sort of highlight a couple of key points that I was trying to make in these different, what I've sort of referred to as these 5 dimensions of practice. And, I said, very draft paper, very preliminary proposal, that I want to put out, sort of take the discussion to a certain level at which we, and I'm not saying, we should run away now and develop training materials on how to do this in these 5 steps. I'm trying to propose a way of thinking about what the nature of the practice actually is. So, started with the examples, sort of in a kind of